Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Awakened Souls podcast. I'm your host, Devin Brown, a Kundalini activator, spiritual guide, mentor, and hopefully just a great source of entertainment for you. Let's get ready to dive in. Hello, beautiful people. So we just had a holiday weekend yesterday for so many people across the world. I'm speaking of Easter Sunday. And so I thought it would actually be appropriate to dive in, so to speak, to what is Christ consciousness and what it means for me. Because I feel like there's a lot of misunderstanding around that idea. There's a lot of misunderstanding around people who come from the Christian community and come from a Christian background, as in almost purposefully misunderstanding spirituality in a way, because it can raise the hackles and it can put you on guard. But also for those of you who are on your spiritual journey and who are purposefully trying to grow and trying to move into this space of unique gifting in this space of everything. So we're going to start by diving into who Jesus was in and of himself. And Jesus, we've all heard the name. Like, I think there's not a single person alive, unless it's, maybe a tribe deep in the jungles, that have not heard the name of Jesus. And for all of us, it holds a little bit of a different meaning. And for certain religions, he is a prophet. For other religions, he is a savior. For other beliefs, he is a role model. And for other people, he was just a man. And so we're not going to look at what he is in the essence of individual religions. What we're going to do is we're going to look at the mindset of what Christ consciousness is and how we can achieve that ourselves. Because obviously we are not Jesus. We are not Abraham Lincoln. We are not Marilyn Monroe. We are not people that we admire. We are not people that we look up to. We are not people that we worship. We are not people that we are taught hold all the answers. Like, we are us. We are fallible human beings. We are created for enjoyment. We are created and here on this planet for earthly pleasures, but also just to grow and to break generational curses and to just move into the light and move out of the dark place that we're in right now. So what Christ consciousness is it's embodying the full knowing and the full connection back to who you were in to where you want to go. Like, Jesus had his awakening when he was about 30 years old. Think about it. The Bible even talks about he was once a carpenter. He left the carpentry to do what he then felt called to do. He came into full awareness of himself, but also willingness to lay down for his cause and his purpose and his sole purpose. But he knew who he was even as a kid. Even as a kid, he was sitting there in the temple speaking of things and channeling things and speaking words of wisdom that the temple priests and the guides had no idea how a kid could know all of this information. But that's the thing. That is the Christ consciousness. That is what I'm like trying to iterate to each of you. We all have access to that. Now, let me take it so that it deruffles a little bit of feathers here. It's referred to as Christ consciousness, but let's think of it this way. Devin, that's me. I know I have a highest self. I know my highest self has all the answers. I know my soul outside of this body literally knows all, sees all, is all. So let's say Devin consciousness. For myself, I would channel Devin consciousness. For you, you would channel your own consciousness. But the idea of putting it all together is the Christ consciousness, because we are all one. And honestly, Jesus was the greatest of all time. Like, he was able to not only be true to himself to the point where he was not willing to let go of owning who he was. He was essentially, and I know there's going to be a lot of flack for this, but think of it like the first witch that was burned publicly. Like, he was what we would consider nowadays a modern day witch. Think about it. Somebody coming up to you and laying hands on your eyes and being able to have them see, someone being able to turn water into wine, all of this stuff. It wouldn't be considered a magician. It wouldn't be considered a healer, because although, yes, the church would like to think that, like, think about it. Would the church consider healing turning water into wine, or would they consider that witchcraft? Just that. Just that one example. So let's go ahead and take into account and take into movement with that the idea that we each get to move forward. We each get to channel our highest selves. We each get to be who it is we were created to be. And in doing so, we are able to fully come into oneness with our highest self, come into oneness with who we are meant to be, come into oneness with ourselves in a manner that a lot of people don't realize we have access to. So Christ consciousness is connecting to your highest self in a way where you allow the answers to come in without proof of the answers being there. You allow your body to take on energy and to move into energy and to move into energetic healing where it was not previously allowed. You allow yourself to be the vibration of that which the world needs. However, that being said, we're going to give an example. And I know there's a couple other channelers and a couple other people that have spoken of this. Like, I know instantly my mind is going to Bashar. I can't think of the man's name who channels him, but he spoke of this on TikTok before. There's a video that was going around. But when you are a healer, so to speak, you're not healing the other person. I am not healing the other person. I am simply allowing the vibration to come in, and for those who are listening to meet that vibration and heal themselves. Like Jesus, when he was walking down the street, he felt someone touch him and he said, some power has left me. Like, who was it? And this woman was cowering on the ground, scared that he was going to judge her. And he said, your faith has made you well. Like, you knew that you could take this vibration that I hold and bring it into yourself and heal yourself. Like, that is a miracle in and of itself. But that is also the Christ consciousness. That is the source. That is owning of who we are, where we are, and moving forward into that. And that is what we can do. I remember very vividly the moment that I realized I was never going to be safe in the marriage that I was in, exploring the spirituality and my giftings in the way that I wanted to explore them. I had tried to explain to my partner at the time how I felt like I was like Jesus. And I was immediately like, that's blasphemous. You can't talk like that. Like, that's sinful. You are not like that, etc. When truly, if you understood, like, one, took time to understood what I was saying, two, actually thought about it and opened yourself up, like, I feel like a lot of people would actually come into agreement with me, Christian or not. And it's one of those things that we are able to access Christ consciousness. We are able to become so connected in oneness with our highest selves that we have the answers that come to us. We follow that intuition. We follow that nudging. We can see the future. We look at the past and we know that time is not linear. Any mistakes, and I'm using finger quotes here, that you feel that you have made are able to be rectified and able to be moved and able to be channeled forward into fruition, into a beautiful place for yourself going forward. Like, there is a big difference between looking for other people for the answers or using Christ consciousness and knowing all of those answers are within ourselves, and that is what we can do. That is like one of the biggest things that I had to come to grips with myself, was that I'm not a healer. I'm a guide. Like, I am not meant to heal other people. I'm meant to guide other people to their own healing in themselves. And Christ consciousness is a grasping of understanding that we are all one. Everything that you do against me, you are doing against yourself. Everything that I do against someone else is essentially coming against me. And so that's one of those things. There's a lot of people that say, oh, well, I'm going to match their energy. I'm going to put as much energy into it as they put into it. And I will raise my hand and say, I did that for so long, especially when I was leaving relationships, especially when I was leaving the church, especially when I was stepping into my own. I was like, you know what? Like, let those who want to still be in my life, like, come, like, and I will match their energy. I'm done pursuing, et cetera, et cetera. That's fine. I have no issue with that. But when it comes to other people and other relationships, I'm not going to match their energy. I'm going to shine my light and be authentically me in every way, shape, and form. Be kind, be generous, set boundaries. And if you cross those boundaries, if you push past those boundaries, if you are disrespectful, then you just don't get access to my energy anymore, period. There is no if, ands, or buts on that. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're family. I don't care if we've known each other for 20 years. I don't care if you saved me from drowning one day and I owe you. Like, absolutely not. If you cannot respect me, respect my vibration, respect my beliefs, respect my love of self, then you don't get access to my energy. And it's one of those things, though, that when you do begin to operate in a Christ consciousness, you are going to pull in those who desire to be there, who want to be where you are, but don't know how to get there. Think about the masses that follow Jesus. Think about the masses that constantly went to even Gandhi and all of these people that had answers that everyone sought, that seemed to be able to bring peace just by being in their presence. You are going to attract people with that. But the key is setting boundaries in a way that doesn't deplete you, and to set boundaries in a way that only allows those who will also feed your cup to be in your inner circle. Jesus had 12 specific friends that he allowed close to him. And even that, he was betrayed by one. There were so many times Jesus was like, I can't do this. I need to be away from people. Get me in a boat. Let's go across the lake. All right, I'm going to go spend 40 days in the desert by myself. Like, Jesus had so many times where he was like, no, I need to protect my energy. This is too much. And he backed away. Like, being the light, you are going to have people come to you. But being a healer does not mean that you have to deplete yourself in order to give to other people. So that is another part of Christ consciousness. It is knowing your boundaries, setting your boundaries, and not going to depletion. And when we know ourselves fully, when we know our answers, when we know who we are, when we understand where we come from in a soul essence self, we are able to love ourselves and have compassion for ourselves when we made decisions that were so far misaligned with who we once were. I look back on myself before I got married, once I got married, even in the past 2.5 years after my divorce. Like, I look at this timeline and I think to myself, like, wow, okay, this is a lot. I can't believe I settled. I can't believe I thought this about myself. I can't believe I believed this about people who didn't believe this way. I can't believe I treated people as if they were stupid and needed me to guide them to answers. I can't believe I didn't have faith in other people in this way. Like, and I can show up, though, with compassion for myself. I can show up with understanding for myself, because now, having embraced Christ consciousness for myself, I see that I was looking through a tainted mirror. First of all, I was looking from a tainted lens, and I was also looking from a lens of conditioning. Like, if you are raised being taught that the color green is actually called orange, you can't be mad at yourself when you say that in front of other people, when you truly are in front of other people and you're arguing the point, until you are faced with the answers, and then you have a decision to make. Okay, what am I going to decide? Am I going to change my beliefs because I have all of this evidence in front of me? Or am I going to go ahead and move forward in a different way? Now, here's the thing. I just used the example of evidence before me. You yourself will be met with evidence in a way that is inexplicable if you desire it and you ask for it. Your guides are there to give yourself answers. Your guides are there to confirm to you that your faith is true, that you're not crazy, using finger quotes here, that you're not making things up, that your beliefs are unfounded, that the woo-woo is ridiculous, all of this. Like, your guides are there to bring understanding and to bring fruition to you if you are willing to listen. But the key is, so many of us are not actually willing to listen. So many of us want other people to give us the answers because it's so much easier than getting to that point where we sacrifice ourselves. Jesus died on the cross, and yet we aren't willing to die to ourselves in a conditioned way, in a manufactured way, in a non-physical death way, to reach this level of freedom that he found prior to death. Like, we are allowed to love ourselves where we are, and we are allowed to change. We are allowed to grow. We are allowed to transform. We are allowed to move. We are allowed to trust ourselves. But we have been taught, and I have this written in my book, to ignore the fact that we were made in the image of where Christianity came from, like the body, soul, and mind, the Trinity. Like, we're taught, though, to ignore our soul, hate our bodies, and don't trust our minds. But it should be the opposite. We should love our bodies. We should love our bodies with everything we put into it, with everything that it's done for us. Like, one of the things I recognize, my body, anytime I feel unsafe, anytime I feel triggered, anytime I feel like I'm betraying myself, even if I haven't realized it yet, I put weight on. Had no idea that I do this, like didn't recognize that I do this, but I do. I put weight on. And then I either have to work my butt off to get it off, like, or I simply come back to a state of homeostasis and a state of safety. And my body will be like, okay, she's safe. Like, we can let go of this extra weight. Like, and it's one of those things too, that with our minds, like, so many of us second guess ourselves. So many of us gaslight ourselves, or we listen to what other people are telling us because we don't trust ourselves. You need to learn to establish trust with yourself. And how do we do this? We do this by taking daily little steps of showing up for ourselves. If you want to say no to something, say no. If you believe something doesn't feel right and everyone's telling you you're crazy, trust yourself. Sit with yourself and see why it is you're feeling the way that you feel. Like, a lot of the times, if we write out on paper the reason we are mistrusting ourselves and we go back and read it, like after giving it time to sit for 24 hours or so, we're going to see it from a completely different lens. Like, after I left my ex, I remember going through the journals of when we were married, and I'm reading these journals and I was thinking, holy fudge, I really thought that I was the problem. I really thought prayer could fix everything. I really thought I had to make this work. I really thought that we had to be together because we said I do and divorce is a sin. I really look back in those journals and I'm so compassionate towards that young girl. I used to say I was disgusted. I'm not anymore. I'm compassionate towards that person because that person was taught that. That person was taught that the color green is orange. And so now I look back and I have compassion on that person. I have love for that person. I have understanding for that person. And I say, you know what? Never again. Never again. And every single time that you get to that point and you set a boundary and say never again, and you hold to that boundary, the people who are benefiting from that boundary are going to try and make you look like the bad guy. And the key is being willing to look like the bad guy. But not only that, not only being willing to look like the bad guy, be willing to embrace being the villain in some people's stories. Because I think what a lot of people don't realize, oh, wow, look at her. She went off the handle. She left her husband. She left the church. Like, he was such a good person. He was such a good dad, blah, 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 like all these things. But like, and I'm using some examples because there have been some rumors that have come out that were spread about me post-divorce. We're not going to go into that because honestly, I don't care. Like, it's been out for a while, is what it is. But it's one of those things that I just look at it and I'm like, okay, I'll be the villain in your story. Absolutely fine. 100%. But let's ask the question, what got me to the place that I became the villain versus the person that you know? What pushed me, if what you're saying is true, so far to the very edge that I completely lost myself and dove into this? So you need to get to the point where you are willing to not only be misunderstood, you are willing to be the bad person, you are willing to be the evil person, you are willing to be the disappointment, you are willing to be the misunderstood, and then you begin to embrace Christ consciousness. It is not an easy journey. It is not a fun journey. It is a journey that can bring loneliness. It is a journey that can bring isolation. It is a journey that will separate you from those who are not meant to be on this path with you. It is a journey that is meant to bring you forth into a place of understanding and into a place of peace within yourself, so that those lost relationships no longer have the hold on you that they once did. And it does take time to get there. 100%. It takes time to get there. It takes time to manifest yourself into that place. But here's the key. Once you do get there, you will become surrounded by your inner core group. The people that see you so clearly. They see your heart so purely. They see you, and they are not only seeing you, they are rooting for you. They are supporting you. They will take a bullet for you. Those are the people that I want in my corner. Those are the people that I want to surround myself with, and I won't settle for anything less ever again. not even a friendship, not even an acquaintance. Like, I am very picky about whose energy I surround myself with. Like, I will just give an example. I used to be the queen of hosting. I loved hosting. I would have anyone and everyone over to my house. I'd do Friendsgivings. I would do all this stuff. I have owned my home for 2 years. I have allowed, I think, 3 people into my home who are not someone that I see like on a daily basis or talk to on a daily basis. I am so picky about the energy that I let into my home, about the people that I allow to cross that threshold, and about the people that I allow into my inner circle. What you guys hear on this podcast, most of the time I am channeling my highest self. There are times like this podcast, I'll give an example. I went through this at one point in time. I don't remember what I even said. I began channeling. I'm going to be just as surprised at how this podcast flows together as you are. I listen to it on Mondays exactly like you guys do, because a lot of the times I just completely zone out and tone out as I'm channeling my highest self, and she is giving you your direction, and she is giving you your answers, and she is giving you your peace. And guess what? You can do that for yourself. You can channel your highest self. Oh, well, I don't have the gift of psychic ability. It doesn't matter. It's you. You're not channeling other people. You are channeling yourself. You can sit there with a notebook and be like, okay, quiet your soul, quiet your mind. You need to be meditating at this point, like, in order to have it truly be something super easy that comes. But sit there and just invite your highest self to speak to you. And you can start with the question, who am I? And then take the pen and begin to write one word at a time what comes. And allow yourself to begin to embrace who you are. If you want to dive deeper into that, if you truly, truly want to know who you are, that is what my Kundalini Rising program is all about. That is what my book, which also gives the steps of Kundalini Rising without the energetic work behind it, is all about. Like, there is going to be a link in this episode you can go and look at. But it is all about coming to the root of who we are, embracing who we are, having compassion for who we were that we no longer want to be, and stepping forward and moving forward into the very essence of who we are called to be. So if you would like to work with me, I am taking on some new mentees. If you think you are ready to do some sort of deeper energy work, I do Akashic record travel, where I take you into a deep hypnosis and we go into the Akashic records together, and we look at who you were, what your contracts are, what it is that your past lives might have been, where your future lives are being held, what it is that you are meant to be. And that is something you can message me with, and we can work on that together. But overall, I'll be frank, you don't need me, because all the answers are already inside of you. I love to work with you. I love to facilitate this honor. And it is a matter of trusting yourself and knowing yourself. I had a professor last semester. He was teaching ethics, but he does teach a lot of other courses and so forth. And it was one of those, it was the very last day of class. I was packing up to leave, and he asked me to stay. And because I was very vocal in the class, he happened to ask me a couple questions about, my beliefs and stuff. He was like, I know I asked you the first day of class what you do, and I know you mentioned you do hair, but you said you do something else, and I can't remember what it was. And I told him, well, actually, I'm like a life coach or a spirituality mentor. I was like, I'm not really sure how you would describe what I do. And he was like, oh, well, what do you do in there? I was like, well, I do channeling. I wrote a book. I do a podcast. I also do energy work, and I do energetic healings for people, guided meditations, and just gave him like the list of things that I do. And he sat there and started pulling out names. Well, do you know about this? Well, do you know about this? Do you know about this? And honestly, part of me at first was excited until I really sat with the energy. And I was like, wait a second. Because I listened to what he said, and he was like, you need to dive into these things. If you're going to sit there and you're going to be teaching this, like, you really need to like get to know these things and get to know the words and all this stuff. And I looked at him and I said, but that defeats the purpose. I was like, I have these giftings and I do all this stuff, and I was never trained. I was never taught. And it's okay if some people are taught and some people are trained. I was like, but I'm a living example of how all the answers are already on the inside of us. And we don't need anybody else to tell us what to do or how to get there. if we're really honest with ourselves and really willing to do the work and dig in, we can get there ourselves. Now, I will state, I had to have help with a therapist to break the conditioning because it was so deeply ingrained through generations inside of me. It was so deeply ingrained that I wasn't allowed to believe what I believed. I wasn't allowed to get divorced. I wasn't allowed to move forward in the way that I wanted to move forward. I wasn't allowed to access my spiritual giftings in the way that I wanted to and had access as a kid. I wasn't allowed to have needs. I wasn't allowed to have wants unless they benefited other people. Like, I was so codependent, and I needed help from a mental health professional to break me past that point. And you may too. You also may need that help as well. And if you do, get it. Future you will be so grateful. For those of you who have been doing the work, you've been diving into the shadows, you've been pulling out the negative, you've been integrating into yourself, you can embrace Christ consciousness. You can become fully aware and fully present. You can work magic. You can work miracles, so to speak. You can be anything and everything that you want to be. The key is to trust yourself. Stop lying to yourself. Stop gaslighting yourself, and stop listening to everyone else. I hope this resonated. I hope this brings maybe a little bit of understanding to someone and some people that just really aren't willing to hear. Maybe they don't want to hear. Maybe some people are determined to misunderstand you, and that's okay. Those are not the people that you want surrounding you. I promise you that. So that being said, I hope everyone has a wonderful Monday. For those of you who did celebrate Easter, I hope you had a great time. For those of you who don't, just enjoy the weekend, or I hope you enjoyed the weekend. And as always, I send you lots of love, lots of light, lots of blessings, and I will be speaking with you soon. I have been taking a pretty big hiatus on social media. I'm going to be stepping back in. There's a lot that my guides have been preparing me to speak, and a lot that they've been preparing me to say. I just have been waiting to get there, and I'm pretty sure I got there. So if you don't follow me on social media, do so, To The Awakened Souls. I'm on TikTok, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, Devin Brown. Like, you can find me very easily. And there's also the link in the bio that leads to all of these things. Have a wonderful day, and we will talk again soon.